Welcome to Recipe Wars. My name is Lalita Lopansary.
And I'm Adrian Bustamante.
So today we are battling out chicken soup. Not chicken noodle soup, but just different variations on chicken soup. Before we start today's battle, we'd like to give a shout out to our Twitter follower, I Love TTM. She gave us a great tip on our flan episode to keep our caramel from setting too quickly by just heating it in the oven. And so we really appreciate your comments and your tips, so thank you, I Love TTM.
Yeah, keep the comments coming, and yeah, big shout out. Thanks.
So let's watch our videos that we found. Mine is by Tyler Florence.
Yep. And mine is by Marcella Valladolid.
Kick it off first with these two big pots and pans. The saute pan up front, we're going to saute some onions and some garlic in and really let them start to caramelize, because that's going to be the base for our chicken meatballs that we're going to use for our chicken noodle soup.
It's all about comfort foods, and it doesn't get more comforting than a warm tortilla soup with some crispy fried tortillas sprinkled over the top.
So my recipe is by Tyler Florence, who is a TV personality host on the Food Network. And my recipe is not that traditional. It still uses the same flavor profiles as chicken noodle soup would, but instead of pasta, I'm using store-bought tortellinis, and I'm making my own chicken apple meatballs to put into my soup.
And mine is by Marcella Valladolid. Hers is a fairly traditional chicken tortilla soup recipe, so a little bit of a twist on the chicken soup. We'll be using the very traditional type things of tomatoes, onions, garlic, some chili, and obviously some tortillas as well. So I'm going to start it off and see what Lolita's doing.
So I'm going to start by caramelizing some diced onions. And this is going to go as part of my chicken meatball filling. And what I want to do is just sweat it out and get like a really nice caramelly, nutty flavor out of them. So that's going to take about 10 minutes.
What I'm doing is I'm actually throwing some onions, some tomatoes, and some garlic into a dry pot. Kind of give it a nice char, or give it a little more flavor as well. Kind of create that color and that flavor that's going to be added to the soup a little bit later. Now in the recipe, she actually uses a cast iron pan, which is a really good idea just because it's a very evenly heated surface, so I don't really have to worry about maybe one part of the pan being hotter than the other. So I have to watch it with my pan a little bit more, a little closely than she would have. But you can use either or, so if you don't have a cast iron pan, feel free to use what I'm using here, which is a deeper pot. And you'll see that it's easier for me to kind of blend, and I don't have to transfer a lot of things, so there are pros and cons to it, you doing it this way. So my tomatoes and onions look like they're just blackened or charred enough. Now it's gonna look like you're burning them. You're not burning them. You're actually just charring, which is creating more flavor for your base, so don't be scared. What I'm gonna do though, I'm actually gonna remove all of my garlic pieces so I can actually peel them. The reason we put these in with the skin on is to make sure they don't get bitter when we're charring them. So it's gonna keep it nice and simple and remove some of the skin. It's gonna cut the edge off. And they should peel off nice and easy. You can almost squeeze them out of the shell here.
Yeah, that's when you know it's ready.
Yeah.
So my onions have been caramelizing for a while, so I'm just gonna add it to my chicken sausage mixture and pretty much make a meatball. Ooh. I have some chopped parsley, some thyme, and a little bit of Parmesan. Yeah, so really simple. I'm pretty much just making a meatball, and I'm gonna mix that all together.
All right, I'm gonna throw my garlic pieces back in there. And along with that, I'm gonna add some chicken stock to here. Now what the chicken stock is gonna do is add a little bit of liquid in my pan, so when I stick my immersion blender in, it'll make blending all these together a lot easier.
Yeah, so you don't have to clean another blender or another pot or...
Yeah. Now in Marcella's video, she actually takes everything out of the cast iron pan, puts it in a blender, blends those up together. And you can do that if you just want to have a blender at home and not an immersion blender. But like I said before in other videos, immersion blender just creates less mess, it's easier, a lot less transfer, so this is what we're going to use.
And then lastly, I'm going to add my egg to my chicken meatball mixture, and that's just going to help bind everything all together. So I'm going to use that same pan that I was searing my onions in. So I finished mixing up my meatball mixture, and Tyler Florence likes to use an ice cream scoop or a cookie scooper for the meatballs. Really easy, make them all consistent, same size. So I'm just gonna sear them all in my pan.
Now what I realized I forgot is I actually forgot to add my chili pieces to the original pan when I was charring everything. So I'm gonna heat them up right here on this skillet by themselves. Now while that's heating up, and I'm gonna throw them back in here and immersion blend that as well. We used these little chilies here. You can use whatever chili is gonna work better for you in your recipe, but Marcella used similar chilies. Now, what you can do to de-seed these to make sure you're not gonna get a lot of seeds in them is you just cut along the edge. And usually these types of chilies are actually really, really crispy, so they'll open up rather easy. And the seeds will just be kind of laying inside. You'll hear them rattling around as well before you cut them open, and you can just dump them out. And for us, what we did is we tore some of these chili pieces apart to throw them in here so they char up a little bit. So you can cut them, this tears apart really easily. We're gonna do the same thing, just like that. And then we'll just wait for these to char up. I'll throw them in here, add a little more immersion blending to it, and then we'll move on.
So all I've done is just seared my meatballs until they're pretty much cooked all the way through. They have kind of a rustic look, you know, it doesn't have to be perfect, it's comfort food, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, so I'm just gonna let them drain out on a paper towel. Normally I would put it into my soup while I was making meatballs, but I only got one burner.
And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna add the rest of my stock to this mixture. Now we're using chicken stock. It's obviously a form of chicken soup, but if you want to keep it vegetarian, you can always use vegetable stock if you like to as well. And now I'm going to add some tortillas to it to add as a thickening agent, but also give it a little flavor as well. So we're going to add these in there. If for some reason you don't want to use tortillas, you can use things like cornstarch to also add a little bit of thickness to your soup. But again, this soup is supposed to be creamy, so these little bit of tortilla is just going to add just a little bit of thickness to it. Nothing.
And flavor too.
And flavor.
Yeah.
And I'm also going to add just a little bit of salt in here as well. You can do whatever you want to taste, but I like to just add a little bit more flavor to it.
So I'm gonna finish the rest of my soup by starting with a mirepoix of celery, onions, and carrots.
Now you'll notice that once you start blending in the tortillas, the color will change just slightly. It'll go from being a darker reddish color to kind of a little bit more of a lighter, creamier color. Now, once that's all set up, what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna turn the burner back on, and I'm gonna simmer it for about 20 minutes and let all those flavors come together. 20 minutes is good enough if you're kind of running on shorter of time. Normally when I simmer something like a soup or even a sauce, I want it to go just as long as I can just to kind of make sure that the flavor increases inside the pot.
So I'm just gonna let my vegetables saute for a little bit longer before I add my chicken stock and my meatballs and my tortellini. So my carrots, onions, and celery have been sauteing, and I wanted to add my garlic after that because I didn't want my garlic to burn.
What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna actually make my own crispy tortilla strips to add as garnish to my soup. But we're going to put a little bit of oil, or a lot of bit of oil. You want about a half an inch at the bottom of the pan because we're actually frying these in the pan. So once that's in there, let that heat up just a bit, and then we're gonna throw our tortilla strips, which we've cut off, and just get them in there, crisp them up so it adds a little bit of texture to our soup once it's all ready.
So I'm gonna add my chicken stock, and we're both actually using low sodium chicken stock, so that way we can control the amount of salt that we're putting into our soup. So I'm just gonna wait for my chicken stock to come to a boil so I can finish it off with my tortellinis and my meatballs.
So I'm adding the tortilla strips now that my oil is heated up enough. Now, just be very careful, obviously, whenever you're dealing with really hot oil in your kitchen, especially when you're using your hands. So I'm just kind of making sure that my hand's far enough away from the pan when I'm dropping them in. I don't want to overcrowd everything too much. This way everything kind of crisps up on their own and heats through all the way, but that should be enough for the pan itself. And then once those are done, I can pull them out, let them cool, and I can add more as I go.
So what kind of oil are you using to fry your chips?
We are using vegetable oil. You'll notice that these will crisp up very quickly since they're just thin pieces of corn tortilla. Nice, and I don't know if you guys can see this at home, but that is nice.
See it and
crisp.
hear it?
Yeah, see it and hear it, hopefully hear it. I'm gonna get myself something to actually pull these off and cool them on, and then I will fry up the rest of these. All right, so our tortilla chips are done. Gonna add just a little bit of salt over the top, and that should cool off pretty quickly for ourselves, and we'll move on to getting some of the garnish ready. Lena's got some stuff to go.
Still finishing up my soup here. My chicken stock has come to a boil, and I'm just gonna add my meatballs carefully into my broth. I don't wanna just drop them in from the top, it's just gonna splatter and get all over the place. So I'm just gonna add my meatballs and then finish with my tortellinis, and it should take maybe like about 2 or 3 minutes.
I'm gonna get some of my avocados ready to to add to my soup once it's all done. So you get an avocado open, you're just gonna run your knife across the edge horizontally here. It should just twist open, and to get the pit out, you're just gonna take your knife, slap it on there, give it a little twist. Boom. Now you're ready. We're gonna do nice cubes for my soup. If you wanna do something else, you can, but we're just gonna run the knife down the center of the avocado and then go against the other lines that we just cut. And the cubes should just scoop out nice and easy like so. Now, our soup isn't ready yet, so I'm just gonna slide those back into the avocado. You wanna make sure you don't do this too early though, because otherwise your avocado is gonna get really brown, and you don't really want a brown avocado as part of your garnish for your soup. So a nice, bright, green, creamy avocado is always the best look.
Or if you want, you could put like a little paper towel with lemon juice on it to kind of save it from oxidizing as well.
Exactly.
So since we are using the low sodium chicken stock, I just want to make sure that I am adding some salt just to make sure it's nice and seasoned.
Some, huh?
So I'm a little bit fan of a lot of salt, but just want to make sure it tastes good.
We're also going to add as garnish to the soup is a chipotle pepper, which is just a smoked jalapeno pepper. We're going to dice this up though. You don't want to throw big chunks of this in your soup, otherwise you're going to get your people that are eating your soup some nice burnt mouths just from the actual heat of the pepper. So we're also using some queso fresco and some crema, which is basically a Mexican sour cream. Now, if you want to use other cheeses, you can, but what I would recommend is using a mild cheese just to make sure it doesn't overtake the flavor of your soup. So maybe even a mild feta, something around that.
So as far as my garnishes, I'm also using a type of cheese. I'm using Pecorino Romano, which is similar to Parmesan, so if you have that on hand, you can use that. And also just some Parmesan. And I think mine is just about ready to go. How does your soup look?
My soup is looking good, and then I'm just gonna keep dicing up some of the things I have here, and we will plate this stuff when we get back.
All right.
All right, so it is now time to taste these two very different soups.
Very different. Yeah, like you said, comparing apples to oranges.
Yeah, it's definitely apples to oranges, but let's try yours first.
Okay.
I definitely like the whole meatball tortellini idea here.
I think I did a really good job on those meatballs.
And meatballs are, I mean, I could take the meatballs out of this soup and eat them on my own. There's so much flavor in that meatball. And I think the longer you let this sit together, that soup is going to be even more amazing.
Yeah, definitely.
There's so many flavors in that soup. When you have the garlic, you have the onion, the meatball, even the tortellini. It's a really good soup. And it really reminds me more of a chicken soup than I think mine's going to remind me of. And yeah, I think you said it before, like you'd like to have this with maybe like a salad or a sandwich, something like that. But
yeah,
really, really good. Some cheese.
Avocados.
Yeah. Really come together really nicely. It's not very spicy, it's not very dark flavored, it's very light.
It's kind of light in its own way despite all the charring and roasting that you did.
And I think overall between the two soups, I think yours is really great as part of a meal, whereas this one would be just a meal on its own because it will tend to get heavier as you go.
It is kind of heavy. Like I could eat more of this than I could of that.
For sure.
But they're both equally as delicious, I think.
I don't think we should have to decide. I think these are definitely, like you said, it's apples to oranges. They're two really good soups, but there's such different takes on a chicken soup that, I mean, it's just one of those things. I don't think it's, you're gonna have somebody that's gonna love tortilla soup and not love something like this, whereas, or vice versa.
Totally different genres as well.
Completely, but very good soups in their own.
Yeah.
So, no decision there?
So, no winner. They're both winners.
Everyone's a winner.
Good job.
Yeah,
Good job.
I like it.
So both of our soups are winners. My recipe by Tyler Florence with the meatballs and the tortellini.
Mine by Marcella Valladolid, the chicken tortilla soup.
So both winners, and I think that wraps up our recipe war. So subscribe to our channel, like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, and thanks for watching Recipe Wars.